Episode 68 of Strange Brow Radio. I'm your host, Tobe Johnson, and today we are talking to James and Tony, who have experienced the supernatural up close and personal. It starts with Bigfoot, and where we end up was pretty surprising, so you're going to enjoy this one. And as always, I want to thank you for joining us and being a member of patreon.com/Strange Brow Radio. It is there you will find new content all the time. We put up all sorts of stuff there, extra episodes, extra videos. There's 5 minutes extra of the Al Moon Lab audiobook available if you're a Patreon member. So for as little as $3 a month, you can make it happen at patreon.com/Strange Brow Radio. Okay, upcoming, we are going to talk to James and Tony, as I said. But first, I want to tell you what I've been doing for the last 48 hours in quarantine. We'll be right back. All right, as I said, the last 48 hours I've been like you in quarantine. The outside world is nutso, and it's no place just to hang out. Certainly no place to have a conference, especially a Bigfoot conference, a paranormal Bigfoot conference. So, as promised, the Sasquatch Rendezvous took place, and it was a global event. We had terrific speakers show up, and they poured their hearts and soul out and broke information. And it was actually one of the best conferences that I'd been a part of. I hadn't actually been a part of a conference as a speaker, but there's new information out, and I'm glad to be sharing it with everybody. Hey, listen, there's been some really cool things that have happened over the last week regarding possible hypotheses of, I guess we'd call them not cures, but I know I'm beating around the bush here, but there's a hypothesis going around about a treatment for COVID. And it has something to do with the Al Moon Lab. And so we talked about that at this conference here. And I will talk about it at the end of this broadcast. But before I do, I just want to make abundantly clear what I'm going to talk about at the end. I cannot tell you to do anything about it. All I can tell you is the information seems rather ambiguous to some and seems rather clear to others. And it has something to do with a treatment for upper respiratory illness, which basically is COVID-19's main target, is complicating the upper airway. And this has to do with the Al Moon Lab. So stick around. At the end of the broadcast, I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm talking about. And we broke that news during this conference, which doesn't seem like it'd be related to a Bigfoot conference, but it is. And so, yeah, I'll tell you more about that. It was an amazing conference. As I said, Ron Moorhead was there, Timothy Renner was there, Mitchell Townsend, who did, gave her one heck of a way of closing this, talking about archaeological evidence of what looked like pictograms on rocks from Mount St. Helens. And so there was really cool stuff going on online, and this will be available at SasquatchRendezvous.com. This whole conference will. And so put that in your search in and save it in your history area. SasquatchRendezvous.com. You will see the conference yourself if you order the download. It'll probably take a month or two to make that happen. So you may be in quarantine by then still. So I hope not. It's getting to us all. Why turn to alcohol and chocolate, right? It's my new best friend. All right, so it is time to take a walk down the Bigfoot Road with Tony and James. And what starts off as a Bigfoot story ends up as a story about Santeria, which was a really interesting turn. I love it when it takes turns like this during these interviews. So an amazing account on camera, actually. We did this on camera. I usually don't. But you can tell so much more about a witness. And as you listen to this interview, imagine this being an on-camera interview, and you'll kind of understand the power of what James and Tony have been through. All right, without further ado, episode 68, James and Tony. All right, on the phone with me now is James and Tony. They've had experiences throughout their life, and I'd love to hear about these experiences. So, James, let me start with you, since you and I started to talk first off. It starts in the world of Bigfoot for me. I don't know if that's necessarily how it starts for you, but take us back to the beginning and tell people a little bit about who you are and where you're at.
Well, my name is James. In central New Mexico. I run the page Res Ghost Stories. We have about 25,000 members. We had about 19,000 members prior to the Yauman case. And just within about a week and a half, we accumulated another 6,000 members. And, it's just spread and the page has grown. And I just kind of took over as moderator, I'd say about maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months. But as far as me taking over the page, it's really grown. We've had a lot more feedback. We've had a lot more interesting stories. Definitely a lot more interesting stories. The Native American community has really reached out and and opened up with a lot of their stories. A lot of their skinwalkers, a lot of their Sasquatch stories. Uh, Heck, their demon stories. It's incredible how many people have reached out, and some anonymously, some that are very open and they say who they are. Uh, a lot of the encounters seem to be very similar, and some of them are very different. Uh, a lot of the Bigfoot encounters, I rarely hear about encounters that were like mine. My encounter happened in the summer of 2009. I had one of my good friends. His name was Angelo. We decided that summer that we were gonna go and hit as many lakes as possible because we were fishermen, you know, hikers, and love to go out to the mountains and go hike and go fish and camp and hang out for a few days. And Quemado was one of our favorite spots. It's just a beautiful place. It's called Quemado Lake, New Mexico. It's in the national forest, the Apache National Forest, and it's right next to the Gila National Forest. So it's huge, absolutely huge. Uh, Everything's out there. There's everything out there. I've I've witnessed pretty much almost every kind of animal in the that's out in our wilderness, mountainous areas out over there in Quemado. Because, like I said, me and Tony have been going to Quemado I've been going well over 20 some years. Tony started going with me about 15 years ago. Absolutely. And the summer of 2009, Tony wasn't with me that trip, but Tony's had experiences down over there in Quemado as well, but he's never had any sightings. He's had something brush up against his tent a few times, and he's heard some howlings at night. He's also had some UFO experiences over there at Quemado. My experience, me and my friend were fishing on the boat ramp, and it was I'd say about 2:30 a.m. at night. It was late, very dark. You can't even see, 5-10 feet in front of you. It's so dark out there. Tony is my security friend, and Tony told me when way back when I first met Tony. Tony's been doing security a long time. He said, when you go and get a flashlight for when you go camping, make sure you get you a good. This is back then. this is before they had these fancy LED lights and stuff, and they had just came out with the LED bulbs for the mag lights. So I had the big mag light. Tony told me, make sure you get the LED bulb for it, because it'll expand your sight for, 100 yards, 200 yards, easy. And well, that night, when you're fishing over there at Quemado, you have to watch your rod, because the fish will pull in your rod. It got a little windy that night, and me and my friend Angela are sitting in the truck. We start dozing off a little bit, and I hear my rod fall. We have the lantern set up around our tackle and around the truck and stuff. And so I get up, and Angela's falling asleep. I get out of the truck and say, well, I'm just going to call it, and reel in my rod and put all my tackle away. Go to the back of the truck. I got my flashlight out. I'm searching the shore and stuff. It's so dark out there. Anything could creep up on you, and you won't see it until it's right there. And I go to the back of the truck. I put my tackle away. I took a leak, start scouring the lake with the flashlight, and I see this. It looked like a bear. That's the best way I could describe it. Exactly like a bear, but it was like big, brown, and reddish. Fucking big. It blew my mind. And I kind of freaked out, and I pounded on the side of the truck, and I'm yelling to Angelo, hey, look at that bear. Look at the bear. There's a bear right away. It wasn't that far away, maybe 30 yards away. I shone the light right on it, and I started yelling out, hey, bear. Hey, bear. And it didn't stand up at first. It just stood like drinking some water, and I yelled again, hey, bear, like more aggressively. And then it stood up. And when it stood up, Toby, it wasn't a bear. The fucking thing was so big. It was so massive. It was like, I try to explain this to some people that, like, if you ever seen the old movies, like when they would see something and the camera would zoom in on whatever they were looking at, seeing or whatever. That's how it kind of was. I pointed the light at it, and it was like a zoom in, and I seen that sucker like up close, and it zoomed out right away. It was just weird. It turned to its side, and it took like 4 or 5 steps, just big strides. And it was a forested area where we were at over there in Quemado. And it looked like it ran right into the tree. That's what it did. It ran into the tree. It didn't go around the tree. I didn't see it go from the back. I didn't see it climb it. And it didn't run from behind it. It ran into the tree, and it was gone. It blew my mind. I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck? I ran around over there, and I was shining the flashlight right around the tree. Me and my friend went around to the area. It didn't even leave footprints. And this thing was so big. Like when it stood up, man, I'd have to say easy 10, 11 feet, maybe even 12 feet. It was so big and wide. It was the biggest thing I ever seen on 2 feet, standing up on 2 legs. It was just fucking blew my mind. I was absolutely speechless after I had seen it. And I ran back to the truck, and I'm telling my friend, hey, I just seen Bigfoot, dude. And he looked at me, and he started laughing at me like, fuck, come on. Because we don't drink. We don't do any hard drugs. We weren't tripping or anything. We were straight as an arrow. And it just, man, it was just so weird. I was speechless. Blew my mind. I looked at him, and he seen the look on my face, and we had been friends for a long time, so he knew I was serious. He knew I wasn't just talking out my ass, just talking shit. He knew I was serious. So he said, well, let's get in the truck. We packed up his fishing gear and we got in the truck and we took off. We went to another campsite way on the other side of the lake. And the following morning, I didn't sleep all night because we didn't even set up the tents or anything. We just went over there and started fishing and went to the campsite, and we were going to sleep in the truck or whatever. And I couldn't sleep. We stood up all night. The camp host, like I said, I'd been going over there for over, a few years. At that point, I had been going over there, I'd say about a good 7-8 years. From 2000 and 2009, I had been going over there a good time, good minute. We knew the camp host, and every time we would go over there, the camp host would come over here to our camp and kick back and have a burger, have a beer, or a Coke or whatever. Just come and hang out with us. Tell us where to go get all the wood, the firewood. People would leave shovels or axes, and he'd come and bring them to us and be like, hey man, just keep it and take it for next time you come. He was just a really cool guy. What was his name?
His name was Bill.
Bill, the camp host over there at Quemado Lake. He came over and, all nonchalant, and he looks at me and he goes, well, what the hell's wrong with you? Did you see Bigfoot? And I turned and I looked at my friend, because my friend was giving me hell all night and all morning. He's like, dude, I know you didn't see nothing of this and that. And when Bill came and said, well, hey, what's wrong, bro? Did you see Bigfoot? And I looked at him, I pointed at my friend, I said, see, I told you, son of a bitch, I seen him. And sure enough, Bill was like, yeah, there's a family of them here. I've spotted 5 of them, and I've spotted them in the group. Bill was an older guy. Bill was like already in the 70s, huh?
Yeah.
Camp host Bill. He was a really good guy. That's why we'd always have him over, and we'd always bullshit and talk, and so after that I kind of slowed down going to Quemado. After that was an experience. It blew my mind. It was.
So you had no idea beforehand that there was anything about that lake, that area?
None whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know there was a Bigfoot in New Mexico. That's how, we would go out camping, and we'd stay there a week at a time in tents, and walking around at night, just hanging out and walking down to the lake. It's around a mile walk down to the lake, and walking at night. And, it's crazy, after that had happened, we were like, that all stopped. Definitely that stopped. We weren't walking around at night anymore after that.
I want to go back to the comment you made about it walking into a tree. That's something that you really focused in on, and not only that, but the detail of you zooming in, almost like you had stereo vision all at once.
Absolutely.
Talk about those experiences.
Man, it was like time froze for a second, and when I seen him from far, like how I said, it zoomed in, and it seemed like he was a couple of feet away from me, and it just zoomed out. But this thing was at least 30 yards away from me, and it was so weird because it just, like, even, man, like I couldn't even hear at that moment. I seen it, and it was just like a tunnel vision. And then that was it. It zoomed out and turned to its side, and it ran off. And like I said, that was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. It ran into a tree, and I for years, I hated telling people my story that I seen Bigfoot, but yeah, it disappeared because it ran into a tree. It makes me sound like I was nuts. People were like, what the fuck is, what are you on? What were you smoking? That's the main thing people would tell me. Well, what the hell were you smoking? What are you talking about? And so after that really that encounter just stroked my interest in Bigfoot big time, man. It was just like, I knew I seen it, but how did it run into a tree? I've heard of Bigfoot encounters, but I never heard of it just going and disappearing like that, running into something or whatever. And I talked to a lot of Native Americans, and they told me that they've also heard of them using the trees as portals, and that they've known about that for years, centuries.
I want you to describe more of what you saw when it did this. Now, I'm picturing it moving vertically into a
It
tree in front of it and colliding into it. Is that what
it
happened?
it it just turned sideways. It was looking straight towards me. It turned sideways, and like I said, it wasn't even 5 steps. Those steps were so wide, and like how they describe how it does move, just like with the long arm strides and the leg, just wide steps. It's exactly what it did. Fast. And as soon as it hit that tree, it was weird. It's just so hard to explain.
Mhm.
It ran into the tree.
Were you able to visually see it go into
Yes.
the tree?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Because I didn't see it run behind it.
Mhm.
I had the flashlight right on it.
Mhm.
When it ran into the tree, it couldn't have been more than 40 yards away. Because when it took those 5 steps,
Mhm.
maybe 10 yards.
So a
It's
totally unobstructed view of what you
totally
were yeah.
unobstructive. Yes, totally unobstructive. There was trees behind it, but not to where it was going to block me from not
Mhm.
seeing it run from behind it. I would have seen it run from tree to tree. It just ran straight into the tree
Mhm.
and it was gone.
What about anything strange when that happened? Did you hear anything that sounded out of the ordinary?
Nope,
No.
nope.
Mm-mm.
It got quiet. It was the middle of the night, 2:30 a.m. at night. There's no lights over there besides the moonlight.
So you had this high-powered mag light pointed in its
And I
direction?
had the high powered mag
Mhm.
light with an LED bulb. Yes,
Mhm.
that had an easy
Mhm.
reach of 200 yards.
Mhm.
Easy, clear as day,
Mhm.
clear as day.
Mhm. And so what was your immediate move when you saw it go into a tree? What was your next move exactly?
I, it freaked me out. It freaked me out. I was like, that's what I yelled. I was like, what the fuck, Bigfoot? And I'm looking at my friend at the truck, and he's still in the cab of the truck. He didn't get up or move out of the truck. I'm looking in the cab of the truck, and he's just like moving around like he was dozing off. And I ran to the window, and I yelled. It kind of woke him up and freaked him out. I said, "Hey, I'm over here yelling at you, telling you what I just saw." And he looked at me and he started laughing at me. He was like,
Mhm.
he goes, "Come on, you did not just see Bigfoot." And I was like, "Dude, come on, brother. You know me. I'm not gonna lie about something like that." I said, I swear.
Mhm.
And that morning, Bill confirmed it, that what I had saw.
Now, Angelo was the one that sleep in the car?
Angelo was asleep in the
Mhm.
in the cab of the
Was
truck. Yeah.
that normal for him to fall asleep in the car?
Well, it was already 2:30
Mhm.
a.m. at night. We
Right.
had been fishing all day.
Mhm.
Uh, it was just, yeah, I guess, it's normal to sleep at night, right?
Sure.
We had already been
Mhm.
night fishing,
Mhm.
and I'd say it gets dark. It got dark about
Mhm.
8 o'clock, little after 8. It was summertime. Uh, so we had been fishing pretty much that whole time.
Mhm. Now, Bill went on to describe a family unit there, right? And so,
Yes.
what kind of
Yeah.
details did he tell you?
Bill said there was 2 big ones and 3 smaller ones, and each of the smaller ones were different sizes. But the big ones, he told me I probably seen the daddy, because there was one really, really big. There was one bigger than the rest of them, and that was probably the one I saw.
So after Bill tells you this, your interest peaks. Is that what you said?
Man, I was kind of freaked out at first. For a while I was kind of freaked out. I really didn't tell anybody about it. The people that were close to me, I would tell them about it, and I started getting a little bit more open about it, and it just like I said, you tell some people and they just try to ridicule you or try to make you look stupid for believing that, or for saying something like that. And my story was, it sounds totally absurd. I saw Bigfoot and he ran into a tree. Okay, well, you're nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while there I was like, man.
Mm-hmm.
But I know what I saw. I know what I saw. To this day,
Mm-hmm.
it blows my mind. I really don't. We really don't go back to Camaldo anymore. We've took a few trips. We took a few trips there after that, but not like how we used to. Just because of that fact that it's there.
So where do you stand with wanting to see something like that again?
Uh, I we go out all the time. I just we still go out, and we've went to a couple of hot spots to where we heard that it was there, and we actually bought land up in Park County in Colorado, and we heard some stories about it being around up over there even before we decided to buy. And it just, when I saw him, I really didn't get scared when I saw it. It wasn't like a fearful moment. It was just, it was a rush. It was like an adrenaline rush. It was like, like, I don't know. That was, it's just crazy. It was like an instant, like a blink of an eye, something that just happened so fast that, you kind of run around and you're like, whoa, what the heck? You don't know how to act when you're seeing one. It's just, I didn't have a camera on me. I didn't have my phone. Besides that, it was just too dark. It was too dark out there. A lot of people tell me, well, you didn't have a camera. Yeah, but you know what? I know what I saw. I know what I saw. And if you know me, I don't lie. I don't like to lie. I don't like liars. I don't like to lie. It just, it was mind blowing. It blew my mind. Blew my mind.
Now the name of the lake. Say that again, real slow, so I can hear it.
Quemado.
Quemado. Okay. It's
It's
interesting.
cute.
Tell me, do you know the meaning of that?
Yes, it means burnt, like
Okay.
to burn.
Okay.
Burnt. Quemado. To quemao.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. And so previous to that, where were you at with the supernatural and the paranormal and Sasquatch previous to that day, 2000?
Uh that summer we saw that's the summer we saw I saw Bigfoot, and we went to Pecos that summer, and we saw same it was kind of the same story. It was about 2 o'clock, in between 2 o'clock, 2:30 at night. We went down to Monastery Lake in Pecos, New Mexico. And it was the same people, me and Angelo. Uh it was funny because I told him it was so dark over there. I told him, I said, man, I said, we could see something or anything can happen, and people won't even know where the hell we went. We could just disappear, and just, it's so dark out here. And not even 10 minutes after I said that, we see a light in the sky. At first, it's bright blue. It starts turning green, red, orange, white, yellow, back to blue. And then it starts shooting. around the sky. And it looked like it was jumping from mountain to mountain. And when it was flying, it would just cut and turn into diagonal directions without even, coming to a stop or anything. It would just go, and then it would just shoot out into another direction and shooting all over the sky. Did that for about 20 minutes, and me and Andrew were like, yeah, let's go before Bigfoot comes again or something. We got the hell out of there.
So how far was this area from the
from
lake?
Quemado?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I'd say about 4 hours, four and a half hours maybe.
Yeah, pretty good click.
Yeah, it's a good little ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never experienced anything, but we've heard that there was Bigfoot in the Jemez mountain areas. Been hearing about some encounters in Jemez, and that's, oh man, I'd say that's about 60 miles away from Pecos, if that.
So would you call you and Tony, are you active researchers? I mean, if you get a call in through Res Ghost Stories, if there's something local, do you have a chapter? Do you two head out and collect evidence and take witness testimony?
No, we haven't got that far into it. I just been self-researching and running the page. But if the opportunity arises, then yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Me and Tony would definitely be interested in doing some research and going out. And actually I have a cousin who does filming. He's in the film industry. He's been talking a lot about wanting to go out and start doing some paranormal research and doing some filming and just going to different places. He wants to go out to Quemado and search the area around there, see if we could find Bill, and just cruise around there.
Yeah, no. Is Bill still with us?
I was there 2 years ago. The last time I went, there was a lady that took over his position. And when I asked her about him, she really didn't have
too much
information on him.
And what about Tony? Tell me a little bit about you. Have you had similar experiences as James, or do you have your own unique stories?
I have my own unique stories about Quemado myself. The stories that I have for also Bigfoot. I haven't seen anything over there, Toby, but I heard callings and tree knockings is what I heard over there. One night I was gonna go with Eric, but he was like under the weather. I think he had caught in the flu or something, and we had already planned this trip like months in advance. So I told him, hey bro, I'm gonna go anyway. And because he had seen what he's seen over there, he didn't think that was a good idea, but I do my own thing. So I went by myself, and about 12 o'clock, I started hearing coyotes and things of that nature. And then, which kind of woke me up. So I kind of took a peek at my watch. And so it was about like 12-ish. And then I went back to sleep. And about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I could hear what I believe were Bigfoot callings and tree knockings. And the very next night that I was there, I had caught some fish at the lake, and I had was eating them, and so I had a good campfire going. And it was getting kind of late, and there's a lot of wild animals out there. There's a lot of bears and mountain lions and things of that nature that are out there as well. So I keep the fire stoked up pretty high, and that keeps away all the animals. And as I was getting ready to call it a night, I was gonna stoke back up the fire so I could get some sleep and not have to worry about any of the bears walking up to the tent or anything like that. So I got out and started gathering my wood, and I observed what I believe was a UFO. It was a ball of light that moved almost like a balloon. Like the pattern was nothing like I had ever seen before. And when it would stop, it would turn blue, almost like a star, like it would blend into the sky. And I must have watched this. I was just so intrigued about it. But I was also afraid at the same time to stoke up my fire that I was afraid to have any kind of weird encounter. So I just watched it for, I was so intrigued. I actually watched it for about 3 hours. Okay. So it wasn't like a 20-minute view of something, a 5-minute view of something. I watched this thing move in the sky with very weird patterns that I've never seen any kind of aircraft perform. And it was nothing like I had ever seen. It was the craft to me was maybe what you would see like small airplanes, the height of small airplanes where you could see them very well. That's about the height of this object. And it was a ball, a complete ball. Like almost what the World War II fighters during World War II were describing, they called them Foo Fighters, balls of light. And that's most likely what went into my mind when I was viewing these things after a while. They moved not like normal aircraft.
There's myths that here in New Mexico that witches would turn into balls of fire. I don't know if you ever heard that saying, Toby. You heard of that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so like I said, I've never seen any kind of aircraft move like that. I work right next to an airport, so I see aircraft all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And it shook me to my core, obviously. But I thought this thing was gonna take off in about like 5-10 minutes. I thought maybe this would only be
Stood hovering
a brief encounter, and so I was so intrigued that I ended up watching this thing until I just couldn't stay up anymore. So I must have watched this thing for about 3 hours. And like I said, Toby, when it would stop, it would turn blue like a star, and it would like almost like blend into the sky, but it really wasn't too high up.
Now, any time did it advance on you?
No.
How far away was it from you,
It was a good distance. A good distance. I would say at least 600 yards at least.
And did it any time acknowledge you? I know that may sound a little weird, but
You know what? It didn't, because I was afraid to shine a light. I was afraid to communicate with it in any way. I didn't want to be abducted.
You didn't want it to see you.
I didn't want it to see me. I was afraid, kind of at first, and because I went out there to stoke up the fire, and then I figured when I saw it, I didn't want to have any light around, because it's so pitch black out there that you can't even see your hand in front of your face.
Yeah, it gets really dark.
so this is at the same lake where the Sasquatch sighting was.
Yes,
with
This
James,
is the same lake.
This
Yeah.
is the same lake. Yes.
Mhm.
Same lake in New Mexico.
So are there known sightings of both of those things? Have you found out that both of those things are connected?
No.
Hmm.
I haven't. We've been hearing about it, but as far as us seeing it, no.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not.
I should ask too. I mean, and maybe I didn't hear right off. Are you right on the reservation? How close are you to reservation country?
Right now I'm right next to a reservation. I'm right next to the Isleta Pueblo reservation.
Mm-hmm.
But we're surrounded by reservations here.
Right, and so the lake is considered county or federal land. Is that right?
The
Or
lake
is
it's private, isn't it? Or is it a national forest? It's a national forest.
Okay. Are there any missing people cases out that way?
Not that we know of.
You know what? I've seen a couple of missing people signs over there. Not too many. They don't want to spook too many people, but the town's like a ghost town. You know, you have to drive. You get into the town, and how far do you think the lake is from the town?
30 minutes.
About 30 minutes.
Exactly 30 minutes.
It's about a good 30 minutes from the town of Quemado, because there's a town named Quemado, and then there's a lake called Quemado Lake, and that it's kind of like there's mountains surrounding the whole thing. It's kind of like in a bowl. Really
Beautiful.
real beautiful area.
Mm-hmm.
Very beautiful. Very beautiful. That was one of our favorite fishing spots. You know, we'd go over there, and every time we'd go over there, we'd kill it, and we'd catch big fish, and just all the wildlife that was there. It was just so abundant. We loved it. You know, it was a great spot.
What about geologically looking at the area there? Is there anything interesting about that area, like mineral-wise? Did they use it to look for things that you know of, as far as like, are there quarries nearby or gold mines, things like that
You know
nature
what?
in that area?
New Mexico's full of them. New Mexico is absolutely full of them, especially with all the mountains and volcanoes. They used to mine uranium in Grants, and Grants isn't that far away, and they've had sightings up in the mountains, up in Mount Taylor, as well. There's also man, I forgot what the name of it is, but it's a lava field. There's a lava field in between Quemado and Grants, and there's tunnels and stuff in the lava, inside the lava tubes, in the lava field. People get lost in there all the time. They'll find their car there, and they'll never find the people that get lost in there. And some of those tubes, man, they go all the way up into Mount Taylor. They go all the way down. There's so many, they don't even know where they go. And they recommend that people don't go down in there, because they're unexplored, and people don't know where they're going, and people end up missing. And you could easily end up snapping your ankle and getting stuck there, and nobody's going to be able to haul you out. You know.
How often does that happen, where people go missing in lava tubes?
You know what? I'm not really down in that area to be, have a thorough, correct answer for you. But I've heard from friends that live in Grants that people go missing all the time.
Right. There's an interesting case up here near Mount St. Helens of a group of teenagers that were filming a YouTube video in what's known as Ape Canyon. And it's about a 2-hour hike. And when they get to the base, the end of their video session there, their flashlights are about ready to run out. And they're down at the end of the lava tube. And they see a little girl crying with a German accent. And she's all alone. And she has no dirt on her. She has no scuffs on her. And she's a missing child. And she somehow made it to the end of the lava tube with no flashlight, without skinning her ankles or getting slightly dirty. So when people go missing in lava tubes, my ears peak up, thinking of a case like that. It might be an interesting place for James and Tony to go and see what trouble they can get into, but you may never come back.
Right? Yeah. Well, I'm not planning on disappearing anytime soon, there, Toby. But or being Bigfoot's dinner, but yeah, there's a lot of interesting places around here in New Mexico. It's just so open space and so wide of a range.
You're right in the Four Corners mecca of all the weirdness. I mean, how far are you from the actual Four Corners?
New Mexico is actually one of the Four Corner states.
Right. So if you get up to that landmark,
I'd say about 3.5, 4 hours from where I'm at.
There's so many stories. I mean, you guys are just you're in like the perfect spot to go for.
Oh yeah, there's so many stories. So many people have been reaching out to me, telling me stories about about the skinwalkers up in their reservations, in their different reservations. There's so many, but a lot of Navajo. It's mainly Navajo that they're talking about the skinwalkers and what they're seeing. And I had somebody PM me today telling me that they were driving, and he didn't really tell me too much or get too much into it, but he gave me a little rundown of his story. And he said he was driving down the road and he seen a skinwalker actually in transformation. It was transforming into the skinwalker, and he just said it just looked absolutely fucking nuts. Blew his mind. He said he kept going. He actually pressed the gas a little bit more faster because he seen it, and he said it was just so weird that it had a coyote skin on his head, and he was just totally deformed. It was just the way it looked. It kind of looked like a dog, but it was just freaking ugly.
Mhm.
Stunk. They stink. I don't know if he didn't say it stunk, but they stink. I've heard you could smell them
Mhm.
from a distance.
Now, James, do you have any reservations about any of this? You going on to the reservations, especially in the world of the skinwalker?
You know what? It's really not safe, especially if you do not know the right people and you don't have permission. It's not safe. It's not safe for anybody, even for the natives. It's not safe if unless they know and they've been there. They got family ties and family roots, because a lot of them do. But they're wise enough not to know not to go in some places and go looking for it. And that's just what they tell me. They want to totally avoid that situation. They're evil. It's evil. And it's people that, what I hear, it's people that have a lot of hatred, that are jealous. They're pure evil. They just wish evil on
Mhm.
people, and just go and put curses on people,
Mhm.
and they'll go and stalk people. And that's why around on the reservations and in certain places, you don't do some certain things at night or anytime. They say you don't whistle at night. You don't talk about them. You don't talk about certain things because there's a reason. You
Mhm.
start talking about it, and that's their beliefs. That's what they believe.
Mhm.
And they start talking about it, and that shit'll show up.
Mhm.
And they're 100% sure and positive in their beliefs that you talk about it, it's going to show up.
Mhm.
And I've had some of them tell me, well, that's our belief. If you don't believe it, then it's not going to affect you. Don't worry about it. That's not your belief. So don't worry about it.
Mhm.
But if that's your belief, they strongly believe, you don't talk about it. And there's certain things that you don't talk about and you don't tell people. But with my group, they've been fairly open.
Mhm.
They don't tell us everything. And we don't say everything that they're going to tell us, just for respect.
Mhm.
But pretty much they're open to share.
Mhm.
They're open to share their stories. They're open to share their experiences. And a lot of them have some pretty trippy stories and experiences to tell. And a lot of them have asked me to start my own podcast and start doing stories for them, and have them call in, and we
Mhm.
could start interviewing them and stuff. And I'm all for it. The page is starting to get a little bit of success. I know 25,000 ain't too much, but from being from a small town, it's big for us.
That's
You know,
pretty big, James. Yeah, that's no small accomplishment. Now, when you talk to someone on a tribal elder, for example, um, do they typically have to get permission to talk to you about certain things? Or I know that
no.
there's,
So,
go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, sometimes the way I understand it is that there's a hierarchy, and they kind of have to talk about what to share and what not to share, especially if you're stepping on some toes.
A lot of times it's mainly about respect. It's about respect. You got to respect them. You got to respect their beliefs. If they feel like they're going to come and talk to you, then they'll talk to you. If they don't want to talk to you, then fine. A lot of them don't like us, or they don't like people knowing. I do have part Pueblo in me, so they don't. I don't know. I've never really gotten into Native American traditions or Pueblo traditions.
Mm-hmm.
But we checked our blood, and our blood does have Native American in us. But I kind of
Mm-hmm.
just stayed away from it. But we're still very interested in it, and it's
Well, now
part of
that's
us.
an interesting detail. So, when did you find that out?
We found that out through my mother and
Mm-hmm.
through our grandmother
Mm-hmm.
on both sides.
Did you suspect that?
Uh yeah, we always kind of suspected it.
Mm-hmm.
It's in our blood.
Mm-hmm.
It's in our blood, and sometimes you can't hide it.
Mm-hmm. So now, is there a part of you that wants to investigate from a different standpoint, knowing now that you're connected to the land?
You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you, Toby. It's just always came to me ever since I was a kid. My first encounters were when I was a child. When I was 3 or 4 years old, that's when I first started experiencing the paranormal. And it's pretty much since then. It's always followed me. It's always
Mm-hmm.
I've always seen stuff and always experienced things. It's just a bunch of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it seems for some reason I always end up in a haunted house, or where things end up, not. Sometimes they're worse than others. Uh, and a lot of times I'll feel it right away, and I'll know right away. And
Mm-hmm.
we like one time, we were renting an apartment, and I was there about 6 months, and towards about the fifth month, we started experiencing just odd occurrences. Our cabinets would open, and sometimes you would hear them slam, or I'd hear people in the living room talking. And it was just a one-bedroom apartment. The thing that was weird about it is the window where the windows were. There wasn't no lights that could hit him. Like, if, let's say a car was pulling in or turning around, you couldn't see the lights reflecting in on the window. And there was only two windows. There was a window in the living room and a window in the bedroom, and both of them were facing northward. And when you pull into the apartment complex, you come in from the west side, and that's it. You walk in from the east side. And my apartment was facing the north side, and there was buildings blocking the other side of the windows. You couldn't see anything. Uh, well, at night, we started noticing light orbs right above, or right below the light in the hallway. I to sort of say, because like our bedroom was, you could look out the door and you could see the bathroom directly right there. There was a little hallway, and it seemed like every night, like you could see it out the corner of your eye. I could see lights flashing above the in the hallway. It was just weird. And when I would turn and look at it, it would be like a flashing camera. It would flash and they would disappear, and it was just weird. And it would happen do you remember that, Tony? Remember when I lived over there and across the street on the park in Roosevelt?
Yeah.
It would happen every night when we would go to bed. And one day I stood I got up early and I went to the living room, and my ex had experienced something. She said that she seen what it seemed to be like. It looked like me, but it was really skinny, and its face was skinny, slender, real slim, real skin and slender, and it was like long, and it was like looking over the bed, looking at her. And when she picked her head up and looked, because she felt like something was looking at her, she said that its eyes were totally black, had no white in its eyes. And she looked at it, and when she seen it, it went in like, this is the best way to describe it. This is how she described it. It looked like a balloon. Like when you let go of a balloon, like one of those long balloons, and they go all wiggling around. Well, it wiggled like that inside the crack of the wall on the floor. Fucking nuts. That was our experience. This is a 3-story apartment complex. The person on the 3rd floor, I lived on the bottom. The person on the 3rd floor, they were experiencing shadow people coming in from the entry, from the roof entry in their apartment. Because in their apartment, that was the door to, it was roof access for the maintenance. And the door was closed and locked, and they were seeing like a half body popping out of the ceiling. That was a shadow that was coming into their room. And I went up there to talk to one of my other neighbors on the 3rd floor, and we see this guy running out, and he was a gay guy, so he was really flamboyant about it. He ran out yelling with this telephone, oh my gosh, he's running out yelling, and I'm looking at my friend like, what the hell? And I've been telling my friend, hey man, we've been experiencing some crazy shit in our apartment. And this guy is running out of his apartment with his phone, trying to take pictures of whatever he was seeing in his apartment. He comes out and tells us, hey, can you guys come into our apartment and look and see if you guys could see it? Because we see something coming out of our ceiling. And we were like, no, not today, bro. We believe you.
Right.
You kind of told him what
Mhm.
was happening with us, and it was weird because I told another one of my neighbors, and he was this was Steve. He used to be a UNM football player. He was going to UNM, and he was telling me that he would wake up in the morning and he would hear all of his cabinets opening and shutting at night. And when they would all be shut when they'd go to bed, and he'd wake up and every single one of them would be open. And he was hearing the same thing. He'd hear like there was people in his apartment. People were talking, and he'd go in there and there wouldn't be nobody in there. He'd go back to his room, and then he'd start hearing all the cabinets open and shut. Well, after my ex had seen, we call it the doppelganger because it looked just like me. That creeped the shit out of me. I was like, what the fuck, That was, I went straight to the office that day, and we were like, hey, you got another apartment? Oh yeah, that apartment's going to be double. Oh, it's all right. We moved the heck out of there. And that was, it didn't follow us, thank God. But I went and asked the ladies in the office if anything had happened in my apartment, and she started asking, well, why? And I said, well, because we're experiencing things. And turned out that the person on the 2nd floor, in between both floors, had passed, and she was in there for like a couple of weeks before they discovered her. And when they discovered her, it was weird because nobody was in. Well, she was in the apartment, but nobody was in the apartment when I was renting there. And there was like a leak in our bathroom that would constantly leak, and there was no leaks there. They couldn't find the leak, and there was always stains up on our ceiling and stuff. And they'd come and they'd fix it. They'd cut it out and fix it and try to find the spot. And they couldn't get rid of that stain, even after they put new sheetrock.
So, James, you grew up with stories like this.
Oh yeah,
Have you ever considered that you're sensitive yourself?
yeah, all the
Right.
time, all the time.
Is that something you're comfortable with?
There's a lot of prayer involved.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Well,
To face those kind of things, you need to have Christ in your life.
I have
Helps
some
protect-
strong faith.
You
I
have to
got
have strong,
Mhm.
you have to have. Yeah, I have faith. I just have. I just pray. I have to have some faith because it's just something that I've always been sensitive to.
Mm. Right. So you feel gifted in some way by the Spirit, and you have a permission through Christ to utilize these spirits. Is that
It's just I don't know. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna say what it is. I've always had it since I was a kid. I've been seeing them since I was, like I said, since I was 4 years old. And I remember my first encounter seeing them, and pretty much I remember every encounter that I've had. And I'd say over the years, I've had at least 20 encounters.
Is there one consistent entity that visits you? Is there a familiar entity?
No, I've never had no reoccurring entities. It'd always be something different. It's always something different.
Okay, what about angelic host? Are you getting visited by angels?
I have a couple of stories that have, hold on a second.
No, that's all right. I mean, once in a while during these interviews, you divert away from the topic at hand because it calls to be talked about. And,
Yeah.
it needs to be kind of delicately done. But if you feel comfortable talking about something like this, by all means, the audience appreciates moments like this.
I had Tony was there. Tony was there that night, but Tony had left. You remember that night we were seeing all the things in Smoke's house, in Angelo's house?
Yeah, you know what? I'll go ahead and share that.
And I'll tell him. I'll tell him, and then
I'll tell my version.
me and Tony will tell you what happened to us that night. My friend Angelo. My friend Angelo was into Santeria. He practiced Santeria. He was a priest in Santeria. I didn't know how far or how much involved he was in till a while. For a while, I didn't really ask him. He said he believed in God and this and that, so I didn't really get too much involved in it to talk to him about it or whatever. He told me a few things about it, and cool, whatever. That wasn't my belief. It was his belief. Well, anyway, he would always leave. He was my roommate. He would always leave, and I'd be there for a week, couple weeks at a time. And one night, which Tony went over, and man, that night was weird, though, because that was the most in years. That was the most. How can I say?
Paranormal activity.
That was the most activity I had experienced in a while, in a long while, and we were seeing. Man, the best way to describe it is they were like little balls, but like shadows, and they were running on the floor everywhere, like you would see them running everywhere. Out of your, remember? We would see them running there. You could see them, but you couldn't see them. You couldn't see what they were. It was just like a shadow, like a mist, but it was a ball, and it was on the floor, and they would go from room to room. running from room to room. We used to do music, and we were in the recording studio. And that's when Tony had came over, and I told Tony, I said, something's weird is happening here tonight. I said, because I keep on seeing a bunch of shit. I said, so tell me tell me you could see it too. And sure enough, Tony kind of started looking around, and we both looked in the living room at the same time. And what we saw was, man, it was a shadow. But what was weird is that it wasn't like a shadow person. It was like boxed out, huh? Yeah. But huge. It it was like a square figure or whatever. It was fucking weird, Toby. I'd never seen anything like that. We had seen shadows coming down the hallway in that house and stuff. And a few friends told me that something's followed them out of the hallway. But we had never seen anything like that. And when I looked and I seen it, I told Tony, I said, tell me I'm not just seeing things, bro. Do you see that? And
He also tells me there's nobody in that room.
Yeah.
It looked like a man standing up.
Yeah, it looked like a man standing up in the hallway or in the living room. He would go in the living room. But man, that was a weird night. It was just so many of those little balls on shadow balls on the floor running around. It was weird. It was just an uneasy feeling in the house. Tony ends up leaving. He's seen the man in the hallway, and he's like, fuck that, I'm out of here. All right, bro, you have a good night, bro. He tells me when to take off. He takes off. And I'm sitting there, and we used to engineer the music. So I'm sitting right down and engineering some music. I hear something say my name. It whispered like a whisper, say my name. And I turn around and I look, and there's this tall shadow standing in the doorway. And the ceiling was a 12 foot ceiling. It was a high ceiling, 12 or 15 foot ceiling. It was a high ceiling. It was an add-on. It was an addition. And it was almost as high as the ceiling. And this shadow was, man, I'd like to say it was just like, fuck. It's crazy. It's like a phantom, like a kind of like a Reaper shadow. Kind of looked like the Grim Reaper, bro. It's fucking weird. I couldn't really make it out, but I could see the shadow standing at the door. Hold on a second. Yeah, this still chokes me up.
Yeah, well, take your time. If you guys need time, take it.
Yeah. I turned around and I seen it. And when I seen it, I said, Jesus. And as soon as I said that, a light shot through the shadow. And it was gone. It's like a bright flash. That was my angel experience.
So this white, it was a white flash of light that shot through darkness?
It was the shadow. You could plainly see the shadow. Mm-hmm. I could see the shadow there. Mm-hmm. And I called out for Jesus, Mm-hmm. And as soon as I did, it was just like it just disappeared, and there was like a flash that mm-hmm. Shot through it and kind of shot out. It's just mm-hmm. went right straight through it, and it was gone.
Yeah, James, describe this light that shot through it if you can, because that's been reported before. Of course, these angelic hosts, not always a physical form, but it seems connected to what you commanded to present itself, which was Jesus or something connected to Christ. Was the light itself something that happened so quick that you couldn't appreciate it, what it looked like, or describe that moment?
Just in a wink of an eye.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a camera flash.
Gotcha.
That it happened so fast
Mm-hmm.
that it would just
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Now, did the room instantly change? Was the feeling different after that you saw that light flash?
Automatically.
Mm-hmm. And before you saw this Grim Reaper, you knew your friend Angelo was into Santeria, yes?
I wouldn't say it was the Reaper. It just kind of that
Mm-hmm.
its form kind of resembled that. Like it looked like it had like a hood, and it was black. Like how the Reaper looks. You know how it has the
Right.
black cloak kind of thing.
Or yeah, you remember Lord of the Rings with those ring wraiths that would
Yeah,
kind of come out?
absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
It
Right.
was just, and it was huge. It was tall.
Mm-hmm.
It was tall, and it just, as soon as it something said my name.
Mm-hmm.
I turned around because I heard my name, and I turned around, and as soon as I seen it, it's like I didn't get. It wasn't like fear. It was just like I just said, "Oh, I think I said the blood of Jesus. I pled the blood of Jesus. I think is what I said. Jesus or the blood of Jesus." I said something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
as soon as I said Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
it was like a flash
Mm-hmm.
that it just dissipated. It was like a flash that
Mm-hmm.
went through, and I remember seeing the flash, and it just kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like went
Mm-hmm.
through the room.
So what happened to Angelo?
I haven't talked to Angelo in over 10 years. I cut communication off with that guy. I had an experience, and after that experience, I'd say a little while after that, I left. I packed up all my stuff and I left. I cut off all ties and contacts with him. Don't talk to him or have anything to do with him anymore. Kind of hate talking about this, but what they do and what they worship and stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with the Santeria religion.
Right. Sometime, describe a little bit if you can for anybody who's unfamiliar, because we're talking about a lot of ritual, and there's animal sacrifice too.
It was, I know they would do blood baths. They would have blood baths, and
Mm-hmm.
after different ceremonies, they would obtain beads. They would do sacrifices or whatever they would do. I wouldn't get too involved because I didn't want to know. He would try to tell me and stuff, and he wanted to try to get me into that stuff. But
so he was trying to actively recruit you.
I wasn't into it. It was weird. I was there like 2 nights, and the second night I was there, what they do is they do a ceremony, and they make a little. I call it an idol, and what it's called is aluwe, and they say he's the gatekeeper. They make a little statue or little idol of aluwe, and it has kind of looks like concrete or mud, but it's really hard like a rock. They put seashells in it. I don't know if you've ever seen one. It's mixed with their blood, with whoever makes its blood. They go and they'll put it on a plate or on an altar, and they'll make offerings to it. Well, one night, it was a couple of days after I was there. I went in the room to take a nap, and while I was sleeping, it was weird. It was so weird. It felt so real. I was in bed, and while I woke up because I heard something growling, and I woke up and I look, and this was a dream that I had, Toby. I have a lot of dreams too, and a lot of my dreams come true. But this one didn't come true, thank God. I dreamed that Aluway was at the foot of my bed. And see, when he made this idol this thing is, 4 or 5 inches tall, 3 or 4 inches wide. It's just a little thing. Well, this thing was like 4 feet tall, 3 feet wide, standing at the end of my bed, and it opened its mouth and it bit my legs off in my dream. I woke up in a sweat, and I was like, "What the hell?" I went and told Angelo, "Hey, I just had a dream that your little guy here fucking bit my legs off, and he's like, "Well, why don't you go throw some change or some candy on the plate and make it an offering?" I was like, "Nah, you do that. You do that, dude." Not too long later, I packed up my shit and I left there because I started seeing a lot of shit in that house, and it just didn't feel right. Just didn't feel right, and the vibe that it seemed like when I was with Angelo that I was seeing a lot more stuff that I had experienced. Because me and Angelo got to be pretty good friends. I knew Angelo for about 7 years. I lived with him for about a year. Really good friend. We did music together. But during the time that I lived with Angelo, I was seeing a lot of stuff. That's the time we seen Bigfoot. We seen a couple of UFOs. I was seeing a lot of shit in his house. Yeah, and I think it was just the vibes and the the stuff he was into that was the cause of that. It was real. I wouldn't say it was a spiritual thing, but it wasn't the right type of spiritual thing. I don't believe. I think it was not for me. It wasn't the right type of spiritualism for me. It was just kind of dark for my taste.
And Angelo, kind of from what your description was, after you saw the Sasquatch go into the tree, you come back and he's nodding off in the truck, right?
He was nodding off in the truck, and he was nonchalant about it. He was like, "Oh yeah." At first he kind of believed me. He was laughing at me, and when I told him, that I was 100% serious, that I wasn't bullshitting with him. I was telling him the truth, and he realized it. And he would joke around sometimes, about it. But that morning when Bill came around and confirmed it, he kind of changed his view. He looked at me. He goes, "I believe you." He believed me. He believed me that I was seeing things, because he'd see stuff too once in a while, but he wasn't. I don't know.
Is it common? Is it common out there to find someone into Santeria? Is it not
No,
talk? No, it's not.
no, absolutely, absolutely not. He was the first person I had ever met that was into it, and the only time I had heard of Santeria was the Sublime song. You ever heard that Santeria song, bro? I know you heard it. You're over there on the West Coast. I know you heard it. I don't practice Santeria. I ain't got no crystal ball. Yeah, but on the serious point, I cut out. I cut ties, and that's been a good 11 years. I'd say 11 years, 10 years.
So do those kind of experiences make you hesitant to kind of embrace something that I'm picking up off you, that you have your own gifts?
Say that again.
Well, as far as your experiences with someone who's practicing Santeria, and obviously you saw a lot of dark stuff in their presence, here you already have this innate ability. It sounds like to me, does it make you hesitant to engage in this gift of yours?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He wasn't really trying to recruit me or whatever. He was just kind of trying to tell me about his religion and what he believed in. And I didn't really know about it, because he had always told me that he believed in God and this and that, but he never really got specific. I really didn't find out until I moved in with him, some of the stuff that he was up to and what he was doing, but after I did, and kind of got to know who he was, and seen, the kind of energy, that was following him, and that was around him, just the negativity and stuff. It was a bad vibe, and after a while of it, I packed up my stuff, and I got out of there.
Right.
It was
Now,
I,
do
I
you
was I
go
was
ahead?
mainly there for excuse me, I'm
Mm,
sorry. I was mainly there for the music. I used to do music, and I
mm-hmm,
don't promote my music. I'm not trying to promote my music, and I'm not
mm-hmm,
gonna. But we used to do music there,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
that's the main reason I was there. The studio was there. We got
mm-hmm,
free studio time. We got to do a lot of music together, and
mm-hmm,
being the way how it was, and just the energy and stuff. I never even put the
mm-hmm.
music out. I
Well, I'll
just
ask you this. This is
yeah.
kind of an off the cuff question here, and one I haven't asked maybe one other person. Do you find that there's any link between music and spirit activity?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Why do you think that is?
I feel we're spiritual beings, and music is absolutely spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, it just the direction of what you want, and the type of music you listen to is is what you're gonna get.
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to some dark shit, then yeah, you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
what follows with that. I just I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I think it was Angelo. It was
Mm-hmm.
Angelo that had that bad energy about him.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere he went, it just seemed to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now, have things slowed down the last 10 years? I mean,
oh
2009, you have this Bigfoot sighting, but things don't just stop at 2009, 2010, do they?
2009, we seen Bigfoot, and then 2010 was the apartment
Mm-hmm.
experience, and then after that, it kind of did slow down. But like I told you, Toby, there's only been a few places where I lived where I really didn't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
The house I'm living at now,
Mm-hmm.
there's a hot spot here in my house where where I see something.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what you call it? We've had a nephew come over, and he's seen something.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the same spot where I see it. So, and
Mm-hmm.
he was a young guy then.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say he was about 8 or 9, and he was seen pretty much in the same. We
Mm-hmm.
got a guest room. We got an addition, and our home's an older manufactured home with additions. Uh, it was owned by an older lady, my friend's grandmother. I bought the house from him. I don't know if she passed away in the house or what, but I see a lot of activity here
Mm-hmm.
in our guest room and down our hallway right here, just in one spot.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing's really came out and shown itself to where I could really see something. It's just always something peeping its head around the corner. You know
Now
what I mean?
you've mentioned a couple of times the connection between seeing things, for example, something with no eyes, and in between your apartment and the one above you, there was a woman that was found that had passed. What do you think the connection is between someone who dies, a normal death, and you seeing something that has no eyes that looks demonic? I'm trying to. What do you
I,
think
I
that
didn't
connection is?
I
Is it
didn't I
connected at
didn't
all?
I didn't see that. I didn't see that. My like I said, my ex had seen that. What I was seeing in that apartment and experiencing in that apartment was the orbs in the hallway. You could see them out the corner of your eye, and there'd be little. They look like they would like fireflies, kind of say, shine on, and you could see them out the corner of your eye flying around the light. It was weird. You fly around the light in the hallway, and as soon as I would turn and look at them, they would like flash, Sometimes there'd be one, sometimes there'd be two or three of them. And I would hear, I'd hear people talking, or it would sound like the TV would be on in the living room. Even when I was there alone, I would hear stuff and I would see stuff in there. The cabinets would open. I'd go into the kitchen and some of the cabinets would be open. That was pretty much it. But I didn't see the demon thing. It was my ex who seen that. But that day when she seen it, I got up early and I was in the living room, and I know she kind of stood later than she normally did getting up. And I went in there. As soon as I got in there, she was kind of frantic and hysterical, and she told me what had happened. That's pretty much, we moved out a few days after that.
Well, getting back to my question, though, what do you think the connection is between someone who's died and there being an entity where you start seeing things like what
Oh
your
man,
significant other described?
Man, I have no idea. I have no idea the connection. Maybe they left their lost soul, or maybe they were a bad soul. Maybe they opened up some doorways, some gateways.
So do you close gateways and portals like the one that you have in your house?
No, I just, you know what, I just pray. I have faith. I have faith in God, Toby. I just pray. I'm not trying to see these things. I didn't ask to see them. Definitely did not ask. Uh I've had things stop. I've had things stop happening, with prayer, because prayer absolutely does work. Faith works, Like I said, that time when Tony went over that night and we were experiencing that, I called out on God and he came, A lot of people don't believe, but I tell you what, every time that I have been in a bad predicament, or I was seeing something that was not right, something that was evil or whatever, and I did call out on God, it stopped automatically.
If you could go back, James, to not having seen some of the stuff that you've seen and just having, a straight and narrow life where you're taking the blue pill, would you want to take some of these experiences away?
No, because that's who I am. That's who I am. We all have gifts, there's different gifts that people have, and that's not the only thing. That's not my only gift that I have. I have multi-talented, I was a musician, I'm an artist, I paint, we do a lot of stuff, I write. I'm trying to write a book. I'm in the middle of writing a book now.
My last question for you and for Tony, what would you tell someone that wants to actively see what you guys have seen before and is seeking this kind of stuff out in order? Well, I can't say their motivation, but you can imagine that the audience that listens to a show like this, they hear about these amazing things and maybe they're just, straight Newtonian science and they don't necessarily know if this stuff is real like you do. What would you say to someone like that?
Say that all my experiences, they just happened all of a sudden. It just happened. That we didn't ask, we didn't go out looking. We didn't purposely try to find them. It just happened. And if you're out there trying to find it, or purposely out there trying to find it, you're probably not. Some people have it, some people don't. If you want to go out there and experience the paranormal or whatever, and you feel that that's what you call, you know what I mean? You don't know what's going to attach itself to you, or you don't know what you're going to bring back with you.
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
as far as I was concerned, Smoke had something, Angelo had something attached to him,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why every time that's why I had a lot of experiences with him, is because I think he had something attached to him, and going out there and looking for things like that, you don't always get what you want, you know, and sometimes you do.
Going back to your Sasquatch experience here in closing, what do you think you saw that day? Because
Oh,
you,
it was a Sasquatch. It
mm-hmm.
was a Bigfoot, Tony. It was it was
Mm-hmm.
just, I'd say the closest thing, it how that who got it right was Harry and the Hendersons, because he looked like Harry.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, but bigger.
And its unique ability to walk into a tree, how does that fit into Harry?
I don't know. I don't know if it. You see at the end. Did you see at the end of that movie how they cloak themselves?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's what it did or what, but I can't explain. I
Mm-hmm.
can't explain it. I don't feel it's my place to try to explain it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's I seen what I saw,
Mm-hmm.
and it ran into the tree, and it didn't go around it. It didn't climb it. It didn't go under it. It ran into the tree, Toby, and it was gone.
Wow.
Uh,
Incredible.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It changed my perspective on on going out to the woods, you know, camping out, especially in that area. I still go out camping and fishing and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but totally changed my perspective on going out there and camping out for as long as we used to.
Well, tell people what's coming up for you. It sounds like you have some things in the works. You're writing a book and such. Do you have any thing coming up in 2020, 2021 you want to talk about?
Well, we're hoping to start a podcast to go along with our Facebook page, uh, Res Ghost Stories. We're hoping to get some more interaction with the
Mm-hmm.
people who've had experiences and all types, different experiences. You know,
Mm-hmm.
where we want to hear it all. We
Yeah.
want to hear it all. We want to know their experiences. We want to share with people. We want to know, you know, what to do in certain situations. You know, because the topics that are going on the Resgo stories, they differ from Bigfoot to, you know, paranormal ghost experiences to demon experiences to just different legends that are happening on the reservation and around the different areas. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be reservation ghost stories. It, you know, it's just, that's just the, you know, the name of our page. You know, but
Mm-hmm. No,
we want to hear.
it's a great
Yeah.
page title because it really gives people from the outside
uh,
looking into Native
uh,
First
exactly.
Nations stories and
A good perspective,
mm-hmm.
a different look,
Mm-hmm.
and totally different opinions,
Mm-hmm.
the First Nation and the Native Americans, they have a totally different opinion
Mm-hmm.
about everything supernatural natural
Mm-hmm.
that we do, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that the normal folks do, you know.
Right.
It's there's they have a bunch of sayings and a bunch of traditions and things that you don't do, and you know, talking about them is kind of one of them. So, you know, these people coming out and talking about it and sharing their stories, I feel it's a special group. You know, people are coming out more and starting to talk about it and wanting to talk about their experiences, and when before they were scared to tell anybody and talk about it because, you know, they don't want to look stupid, or, you know, people think that they're crazy, or people might know them on that are on the page too. And, some people call me and hit me up anonymously, and I post anonymous stories. And some of those stories are wild. It's just, there's so many different things that's going on the reservations. And it's mind blowing to find out a lot of them, a lot of the witchcraft that's going on the reservations, and they call it bad medicine. There's a lot of bad medicine going on, and they say it's from the people that are very hateful. They're jealous and hateful. They're just evil people, and they find out who they are, and they've come out with telling me so many different stories. I've heard stories of people being they say they think that they're cursed because something's wrong with them, and they'll call their medicine man, and their medicine man will come, and they'll have a horn or an antler or something, and they'll hollow it out or whatever, and they'll sing a song, and they'll say a prayer, and they go around and they'll feel on their body, and they'll find things, and they'll blow or they'll suck on the horn, and they'll pull stuff out of their body, like arrowheads or rocks, twigs, hair balls. And it's nuts. It's just finding out a lot of this stuff that, people are talking about. That this one lady said that she was lazy all the time. I posted this story up that she was always lazy and she didn't want to get up or do anything. And she went to their medicine man and he pulled out an antler or whatever, and he sucked out some rocks and some arrowheads out of her, and that's what had made her lazy. After they had did that to her, she was fine. So, they have their way of medicine, they have their way of thinking and the way they do their things. And, I don't question it, just, it's spiritual, it's all spiritual.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming on today. Our guests have been James and Tony. The show Res Ghost Stories. Catch it. Sounds like it's a growing channel. I look forward to seeing it myself and talking to you both again. Thanks again, James. Thanks again, Tony.
Thank you, Toby. Appreciate you having us on your show. Thank you.
All right, that again was James and Tony. Thanks, guys. Incredible interview. All right, so what was I talking about in the beginning here? Well, in short, we posed a question to the woods behind the Al Moon Lab, the area we still go into that once in a while more than once in a while, we get quite a bit of more than anecdotal evidence. Let's put it that way. Handprints, hair, fingerprints, you name it, it kind of shows up there. We have a couple doctors actually heading out that way, one in particular rather soon if all works out with the quarantine guidelines and such. The reason being is that we posed a question to the higher intelligence out there in the woods, and one of the main questions we had was, A, what's a treatment for COVID-19 or coronavirus that we can readily get? Because there is no treatment, there is no cure, there is no immunization. The other question that we posed was, can we meet? So the question of COVID was posed as a verbal question, just a simple statement in the middle of the woods. And then we left. But before we left, we took little tiny spelling blocks, like little tiny Scrabble pieces that had letters written all over little tiny blocks of wood. And we set them on a rock near some fossils and some stones, way deep in the forest in a hidden zone on top of a stump. And the question was posed, can we meet with these letters? And they just sat there. And a couple of days go by, found that the letters were rearranged in a certain way. And they now said TOWPIE because they had letters all over them and they rearranged them. But sitting on this fossil next to these rearranged letters was a black substance. And it's it looks like fungi. It looks like black fungi of some kind. So we've shown this around, and the name that keeps coming up, there's a couple other names, but the one that keeps coming up is something called black witch's butter. And it is an ancient Chinese remedy, I guess, or treatment for upper respiratory illnesses. And it is also an expectorant, which loosens up upper respiratory infection. and it is what you would get if you went to a Chinese herbalist. And we're looking for such things. Now, I don't know for sure if this is what this is all about, but we know it didn't fall from a tree because it doesn't grow from the tree, first of all, and it was placed on this fossil. So very interesting. Also, it is, it seems like a hallucinogenic. It helps you see land spirits. So going back to these two questions, can we meet? And is there a cure for COVID-19? Now, what am I supposed to do with that information? Keep it to myself, not talk about it? All I can tell you is that no recommendations from me to follow up on this on your own. It is merely a statement that this is what has happened. And if you're a mycologist or into fungi, if you're just a fun guy, reach out to me at strangebrowradio@gmail.com. If you're a fun gal, reach out to me too. And I'd love to answer some questions if you have any about this. Again, called Black Witch's Butter. Very weird. So we need more information before we do anything with this. But anyway, you guys be careful out there. I will see you next week, or I will see you in the trees.